Hello everyone, this is Ritik and you're listening to the podcast. So it's been a long time since I've done a podcast and finally I found a little bit of time to continue these podcasts. So today I want to talk about Zajezova, and for those of you who don't know, Zajezova is a very small village in a mountain area in Slovakia, or a town, and it's a very beautiful town. You're surrounded by mountains, and I'm gonna tell you a story of how I got there and my experience there. So basically it all started with a purposeless summer for me, because basically in my last semester of university I had to complete around 40 subjects at a shot to complete and graduate, and I kind of let it happen in the last minute. I left my work till the last minute so that I can race against time and kind of feel even more accomplished. I mean, that's a knack I've got. So basically right after the exams were done and I kind of graduated, I made it. After I made it, I felt so purposeless because most of my friends were not even in Košice. That's where I used to study, and they were all in Spain or India or France or anywhere else. And even the native people, like from Slovakia, my Slovak friends were holidaying too. So they were around Croatia or somewhere for holidaying with their family. So it was really a purposeless summer because there was nothing to do. There was really nothing to do. I couldn't go out much because most of my friends are not there, and it didn't seem so interesting either at that time. But there was another issue at the time. The issue was I had this visa which was expired. So technically an expired visa, you shouldn't have an expired visa, but due to COVID, Slovakia was under national emergency, and the foreign police declared that once they finish the national emergency, 2 months after the national emergency, you have time till then. And Slovakia was still in national emergency, so I was legally there, but that didn't kind of apply to other Schengen countries. So whatever visa I had was only valid to be in Slovakia. So what happened was, during my last semester in Slovakia, I was already bored of the routine that I was living in Slovakia, in Košice mainly, and I wanted to travel, and I came across these two websites called the World Packers and WORKAWAYED. So I thought maybe I could volunteer in some of the places, like in Swiss Alps or somewhere else in Hallstatt or something in Austria, so that I get a new routine and I can be in a new place and learn new cultures. So that was the plan. However, even if I could go to the French Alps or the Swiss Alps, I couldn't because of my visa. So I had to find a place within Slovakia. And I've been to Bratislava, I've been to Piastany, I've been to Banska Bystrica and other places, but this place called Zajezova was something very new. And it was on WORKAWAYED, and I texted them and I was like, hey, I'm here for the summer. I don't have a purpose right now, so can I come work and volunteer in exchange for accommodation and like food? And they were like, oh yeah, that sounds good. You can stay for a week or 2 weeks, but we would prefer if you stay for a little bit longer, but not very long. And I was just excited, and due to this excitement I couldn't sleep for 2 or 3 days. But at one point of time I was like, okay, my eyes are red, I gotta sleep. And then forced myself for 3 hours more, and I don't know how I fell asleep, but I fell asleep. And during this time, usually summers for students are like they leave their luggages in their friend's place who are staying in that city for the summer. So basically, when I stayed for the summer, most of them, like most of my friends who went home, either to Spain or to India or to other countries, they kind of left a lot of luggage in my house. And the thing is, I didn't have a permanent stay because my contract ended, and moreover, I was kind of staying in an Airbnb for a month because of COVID, and since I wasn't sure if I was moving out of Slovakia at the time. So this whole summer has been me shifting from one place to another every 10 days because I couldn't commit to a long-term rental. And during this time, I had to move the luggage too. So basically, when I wanted to go to Zajezova, I had to shift the luggage, and so I called one of my friends who owns a restaurant and put all the luggage there. So how did I go to Zajezova? So there was a train, and that trains for students are free for in Slovakia. So I took a train from Košice to Zvolin, and actually to Banska Bystrica, and there's a bus from Banska Bystrica to Zvolin. So during this time, I met a lot of people. Basically, I met a lot of tourists actually, because I met an American girl who kind of said that it's really beautiful here, and I would, if I could rethink my choices, I would have done my education in Slovakia because it's more vibrant and it's more beautiful, it's so pollution free and stuff like that. So I met quite a few people, and then a lot of people were visiting the high Tatras. I don't know if it was not time for skiing, but still it was a good time for tourists, I guess. And I met a lot of people on the train, and people were talking about some things about some castles, and they told me, I met one person who was on the train, and he told me the story of Batoria. So basically there was this queen who used to take bath in blood to look young and vibrant, stories like that you find on the train apparently. So later we reached Banska Bystrica, and the vibe over there just feels so alive because there are some places where you just feel alive because it's hard to explain. I think every place has its own energy, and Banska Bystrica had this kind of energy where you feel alive, and there's so much nature and mountains, green mountains. It's just beautiful. So if you're in Slovakia sometime, you should go to Banska Bystrica as well. So from there I took a bus to Zvolin, and in this bus, there was a lot of lot of crowd going to Zvolin, but then from there I had to take another bus, which I had to wait for 6 hours or something. And then close to the bus station in Zvolin was a cafe bar kind of a place where I just took my luggage and went because there was nothing else to do. So I spoke to the bartender there. She was pretty cute, and I was asking her about when did the bar open, and how much, what do people do here and stuff like that. So the center was really small, and you could cover the whole place in 15-30 minutes. So I spoke to the bartender. I bought 3 or 4 items, sat there for a while, and even gave them tips and asked them if I could leave my luggage there so that I can go on a tour and come back. And they did suggest me the road and stuff like that. So I went around, and then I saw the place. Pretty little town, and it was quite good. And then I came back to the same place, and I had to wait 4 more hours. Even after doing so much, there's 4 hours left, so I just took out my journal. I started writing a few thoughts, and I write some stuff, so stuff like that. Later I waited for a while, and then spoke to some friends and family. By then it was already 6 o'clock. I was like, okay, fine, now I'm gonna take the bus. So I took a bus, and I went straight to Zajezova. Dude, the journey was just perfect, because in the summer the sun sets at like 8:30 in Slovakia. It's quite too late if you're born in India and stuff, but it was amazing. Like, the mountains and the sunset was crazy. Like, and the bus ride was like, it was so different and so nice and so new, and like, it's like we were literally going in between mountains, and I reached Zajezova, and when I reached there, I called a Norwegian guy who was apparently the one who was hosting me. So it was a Norwegian family. So he came to pick me up at the bus stop. He drove for, I don't know, 2 kilometers, and then we entered this I don't know, like 4-5 hectares of land. Mountains, honestly, mountains. And it's just beautiful, with a swimming pool right in the center. There's campfire, there's a kitchen and a bar, and there's cats and animals, sheep, and there are a few guests over there, because it's also like a place for, like, staying and kind of thing like that, like a hotel, but not a hotel exactly, like, cabin in the woods kind of thing. So my accommodation that night was in a caravan. So I've never lived in a caravan before, and I gotta say, it's pretty interesting. It's damn good. Like, I had the view of, like, a spectacular view, and I'm sure you can see it in a few pictures if you're watching this on YouTube. It was a spectacular view, just to walk in those fields and stuff. So basically, the caravan that I lived in was outside the lands of the guests. So basically, there was this space where all the guests and some shared animals used to stay, and there was a fence across which a cow, a horse, and a pony was wandering and stuff like that. So in that fence was another fence where I had my my caravan, and that was my stay. So basically, I was all excited to work, and the next day I was all ready. We had dinner before that and slept, and I was all ready and very excited to do some kind of work. Maybe it's gardening, maybe it's, I don't know what. So I went there, and they were like, hey, you know what, maybe you should make a hole. I was like, what? They were like, yeah, make a hole. We want to put up an umbrella next to the stable so that the sun doesn't hit the customers. I was like, yeah, cool, that sounds okay. And then they were like, yeah, try to take your own time, do it as slowly as possible. And I was like, okay, I understand. And they asked me if I can cook. I was like, yeah, I do cook. I do cook some Indian and Italian food and stuff like that. Then they were like, okay, fine, for now make a hole. It's like make a little bit, don't dig too much and stuff. Okay, I was like, okay, fine. I made a hole, and apparently I made a hole too fast, because I don't know, that's the way I work, I guess. And the umbrella fit. We put some cement or concrete and left it to dry for some time. And they were like, okay, this was supposed to be a 3-day job for me, but since I finished it, they were like telling me how it is for like Scandinavian people to like just lay back and distribute work so that you'll not have nothing to do, so I started understanding their work culture, because it's so peaceful and laid back, and like I think some types of work does require that kind of attitude, and it was just so peaceful and so much harmony there. Then later that evening I was supposed to cook. Then I made some meatballs, and since I'm Indian, I added a little bit garlic, some salt and something to season, which were of course spicy for them, but they also liked it. So it's like they kept coming back for more. So I did understand that, okay, maybe they didn't get the essence of the spice from before, so that's why they might have not liked it and stuff. Then later the next day, like, nobody woke me up, and I don't know why, but I got up like really late, around 12, and I went to the place, and they were like, hey, you don't have to worry, like there's some grass there, give it to the horse and the sheep and stuff. I was like, yeah. And then there was this girl who was like young, and she was studying in Bratislava, so she also used to feed them and work here part-time. So she was giving me company, and we used to like talk to each other for a long time, understand how people are there. And she told me that in that whole town I'd be the first Indian. They've never seen an Indian person, and that the whole town was actually wondering who was I. And I kind of felt special, and not. And the best part is, I did go to towns and places where I'm the only Indian that they've ever seen. Some places was kind of a negative vibe, but this one was so positive. Like, it was so good, because they wanted to know more, and they were like really excited and stuff. And then later, it was like the next day or something. So I got a new job where I had to like cut the grass, and you have this machine where you put the blades or wires, and then you cut off grass and like weeds or something. So basically, I've never used such a machine before, but it was so good, because dude, it felt like you're like using a machine gun or something, and it was really interesting. And so I had to cut some trees, and this guy asks me to work only for 1 hour or something, but I was so excited. I cut the whole thing down. So basically, there was so much weeds and like tall grass for like maybe, let's say, 3 days, or 3 days work, and I completed it in like 1 hour again, dude, because it was exciting. And I don't know, it's like you're in the zone, when you're shooting, you have this feeling with that grass cutting machine as well, and you feel like the Terminator or something, and you're just like in that vibe. So I don't know, I've spent like 3 hours doing that, and I had no idea. Only when the diesel ran out did I notice the time, or like how much work I've done. It was crazy good, dude. And then they were like, hey, this is like already done. It was your 3 days of work, but sure, empty the whole thing, I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it the next day. I saved some work for the next day. I was so excited about this that I got dreams about it. I was so excited I couldn't sleep and stuff. And later I had some good dinner. We spoke about Norway for a long time. We spoke about India for a long time. And then the next day, some a German couple came to Zajezova, and they were staying at a tent, and there was this thing where one night was very vibrant. So there were a lot of camps. So basically there was like many tents, many caravans. So apparently the place where I stayed in Zajezova, they had their own houses and caravans that they rented out for like a day or two, and they had like space for other people to come and like put up tents or like park their car and like use the restroom and stuff. Also some other caravans came, parked there, and stayed there and stuff. So this night was very bright because everybody was like singing, dancing. It was beautiful. So I started approaching everyone from the first caravan to know what their stories are. So basically the first one was just a family who lives close by, and would always it was like a joint family. Basically it was like 3 or 4 brothers, and they and their families meet up, go out camping, and stuff like that, sing and dance. So they do it at least once a month, and that was their story. Then I went to this other guy who has a caravan. He's a sound designer, sound engineer or something like that. He composes music. So basically he works in healing sounds and stuff like that. So basically this guy had 2 kids, and he asked me, he told me he always wanted to go to India. He was in Sri Lanka and stuff like that. So he was very excited to see me there. I was excited that he traveled somewhere really close to India. So that was pretty good. So his kids were like watching TV, but it was more like not a TV, but what do you call this? It was like a screen on the caravan, where what do you make PowerPoint presentations with? A projector, that's it. So they had a projector through which they were watching the TV, and there were like lights all over the caravan for the kids. And it seemed, so they were telling me that the kids also like traveling, and they had a very beautiful caravan. It felt like a home with them. Then as I went along, I met this German couple who had drove all the way from I think they were in Austria and France, the Alps or something. They drove to Zajezova. They didn't know where they were going apparently, and they ended up here, which was quite nice. And later what happened, I spoke to them. We kind of vibed and we chilled for the night. The next day, the couple were like, they love Indian food and stuff like that. So basically I was trying to so they were asking me how to make chapatis. I started telling them how I make them, and they were like, that's how we make bread, our German bread. I was like, okay, that sounds cool, because it's kind of the same recipe, except we use a pan and they use an oven. So yeah, and we started talking for a long time, and then I was like, hey, why don't I make an Indian dinner? And they were like, yeah, it sounds amazing, and can we help you with it? They were like, yeah. And then we went to the Norwegian couple who hosted us, and they would love to do it too, So we put up a menu where there's a menu, and then there is this thing where it's chapati with Nutella or peanut butter or jam, and then you have like lassi made with fresh fruits, because there were a lot of berries and strawberries and stuff like that. So what we did, we went shopping. I think it costed us like 62 euros of ingredients, and then we cooked the whole day. They also made They also made the bread for the next day morning. So what we did was I made sambar, but I didn't use any because I didn't have any spices. I just made everything from scratch and using vegetables and stuff like that. And I toned down on the spice, so that was there. And chapatis, we made chapatis in the brick oven, which was actually much more tasty. And then we did it with Nutella, and then we put a price on the menu because we were selling it from the restaurant. And wow, it was beautiful because everyone bought a plate. And then the yogurt or like lassi, I mean strawberry, it was with strawberries, like actual strawberries. So we made it really fresh and stuff, and everybody enjoyed it. It was beautiful. Like, it was a beautiful time. Everyone had fun, and this was amazing. Then later, the next day, the German couple also made some homemade pizzas, which was amazing because they again made it in the brick oven. I think they made it before I made the Indian food, I think so. Yeah, it was the previous night. And everybody enjoyed Indian food, and everybody over there who stayed in tents and stuff, they actually ordered the menu, and the kids really liked chapati with a Nutella, and so it was actually fun. Then a lot of things happened. I think we made more profits probably. I never asked about it. The next day, there was like this guy who offered me grappa because there was grappa available. So I drank, and then, oh my god, burnt my throat, and then drank another shot, and then went back to work. I mean, these are things in Slovakia, so it's part of the lifestyle, I gotta say. So basically, this guy came to me and said that he owns a pub. The same guy who offered me grappa. He told me he owns a pub close to Bratislava, and maybe that we should do something like this, like an Indian night or something, where you cook and we have it and make some event, so that he'll have more activity in the club, and I can also have something to do. And I told him I was a DJ as well, so if you have any gigs later, you could always call me. And he had his own line of beers. So yeah, it was very beautiful. And then later, I had to come back to Košice. But before all this happened, there was this night where I was supposed to go. I wanted to go out and see the place. I did go on a walk, and to walk till the bus stop was like 2 kilometers. I walked, and it rained. I got drenched, came back. Again that night, there was a hippie festival apparently, and that happens once in a year. So basically, the Norwegian guy, he dropped me there. He kind of dropped me there, and he was like, you can come back the next day morning, or if you want me to come back at night, you can just tell me. I was like, maybe I'll be there for the night, So I went there, and it was a long walk. It was like 3 kilometers of walk into some mountain, through some forest, like you're gonna see that in the videos and pictures that that's playing on YouTube. So basically, I went through there, and it's a hippie festival. So there's a lot of people. There's some people doing Tai Chi. There's some people selling latte and matcha tea, or some people are making chapatis. I was like, okay, this kind of I can feel the vibe. And then I see some stage where they're performing, singing, and there's people performing in the middle of the concert, in the middle of the mountain, and everything. It was super fun. Then I met a band where there was a beautiful woman singing. There was this guy who played violin, and he didn't want to have one hand, and it was crazy how he could do this. It was amazing. And slowly we got into the vibe. The night started getting really cold, and the beers we had to go get beers on our own and stuff like that. So apparently I haven't booked a place or anything. So I just was like, okay, I'm gonna pull an all-nighter, go home and sleep. So what I did there was, while going around in this festival, I saw some people making like this goulash, but it was all vegan. A lot of vegan crowd apparently, and there were like these people who were listening to music, and I kind of joined them, and they gave me this tea, which was apparently from Amsterdam, and it's supposed to give you like 4 or 5 times the effect of caffeine, which I got to know after I drank half the tea, because it was warm and the weather was really cold. And then later I stumbled upon a few people, some guy who was performing music, and I spoke to him. He was like, yeah, a lot of people in Slovakia, I like to perform live, and I like to see the happiness in people. I like to bring joy around us, joy around people and stuff like that. I met him, then later went to the band and appreciated the guy who didn't have a hand. Like, I was like, wow, dude, you're amazing. And then I became friends with the band, and there was this guy who was also with the band, and he offered me a lot of vodka. I was like, let's have it. And then we started drinking, and then he started telling me that people in there were a lot of like mafia from Zvolin, and a lot of gangster fights between Zvolin and Banska Bystrica and stuff like that. Some few stories which are interesting. And then later we went ahead. We started enjoying the night, and then he told me that once it passes 1 o'clock, everybody goes to the fire. I was like, okay, let's go to the fire. So it's at the top of the hill where everybody goes, and there's a lot of fire. And then there was a huge fire around which everybody sat, and everybody had their instruments like tablas or like, I don't know, bongos or many instruments. I'm not so good with that. And one guy started singing in a rhythm, and then another guy adds a tune, one more adds a tune, adds a vocal, or somebody beatboxes, somebody starts dancing, and people start improvising, and they start doing crazy shit, but in a crazy rhythm. Like, you can record that as a song, like, that good rhythm, and it's kind of like just natural. And I was there, I was also kind of vibing, but kind of off, and then vibing, because that's not the kind of music I listen to. But it was more like this lambada kind of vibe, like the forbidden dance. And then it was nice. And then at one point around 6 a.m. or something, my friend and I started mocking them, because like it got to a point where it started becoming annoying and funny. And we also felt we were not correct, in a good mental state too. And then later I walked back there, and the next day I was supposed to work, of course. And that day we actually went to another house to fix an electrical problem. So basically this guy the Norwegian guy was also an electrician, and apparently he took me there to fix the thing, and he actually took me on a tractor. You can also watch that video here. And during this time where I was in the hippie festival, I met this girl who was Italian, and she was a volunteer in that event apparently, and in that place. So she also used to come to the place where I volunteered for some time, and be there and stuff like that. I spoke to her, and then we kind of became friends. And then the conversation somehow shifted to horses. I was like, okay, I like horses, and someday I plan to own them. So when I started telling her this, she was like, yeah, but do you want to ride a horse, or do you want to own it? I was like, of course I want to own it. She was like, yeah, then you should know horsemanship, or like, how to train a horse, basically. I was like, I have no clue. Do you know how to ride a horse? I was like, no clue. Then she was like, Italian stallions are very wild, and she knows some horsemen who was like really experienced, and his Italian stallion just bit off his neck and took off, So she was telling me they're very wild creatures and you gotta be really smart and stuff like that. I was like, I can handle that maybe once I get it, or once I get there. And since there was a horse here, she asked me if I could at least connect with this horse. And then I was like, yeah, why not? I like a challenge. But then in my heart, like the beat was so fast, like duck 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 duck, and then we went to the horse, and apparently we had to sit down like 10 meters away from the horse, and she told me that you got to familiarize yourself with the horse, so you got to stay in the same ground and be around its surroundings so that you don't go as a sudden surprise. And then I sat there. She told me the cow's gonna come first. The cow actually came first, and then she kind of pushed it to the side, and then she told me, see, and you wanted a stallion, and she started laughing because I was kind of scared, and then it kind of bruised my ego. So even if I was like so fearful, I just sat there. And then later we slowly approached the horse as it approached us, and then she started telling me like, because I'm a male and the horse is a male, it sees you as a competition. And I was like, okay, so either you got to dominate the horse or you got to be submissive to the horse, but usually dominate it is. And she told me that you got to build a friendly relationship more than a competitive relationship, and it's easier for the woman to like build a friendship with the horse than for me, given the gender. And then we went closer, and she was teaching me ways where if the horse listens to you, you kind of feed it with candies or something. The other way was like insisting the horse to like, so you kind of push the horse to the right, push his face a little bit to the right till he starts walking to the right. You push his face to the left till he starts walking to the left. So these were some of the tricks. So apparently I've stood there. She did that like 3-4 times, where she took the horse around to walk, and I was there, and I was trying for like 15 minutes to do the same thing. And then I was like, okay, maybe he doesn't want to do it. And then I start walking away. Then the horse starts walking with me. Then she says, okay, now he's ready to go with you. And then I took the horse for like a huge walk, and it was like kind of in sync because I'm leading the horse and he's actually following my lead. It was a beautiful thing. And if I in case took a whole round to like see where my horse is, he would take a whole round too, which would confuse both of us, And the horse was like very instinctive. Horses are very instinctive. And then like, dude, if our instincts are like 100, their instincts are like 10k or something, So I actually enjoyed it. I was also scared, but enjoyed it. And she was shocked too, and she was like, okay, for the first time nobody has done this good, as far as she knows. So I've done a good job, and I was actually interested in horsemanship and everything. Then she told me a lot of people try to beat the horse, stuff like this, but then it's more better when you build like a relationship. And it was very intense, because you got to be there with a lot of intense emotions. Then only like you are a good horseman, you've got good horsemanship. So it was so intense. There was a lot of silence, and then it's like you convincing the horse that, hey, you can trust me. It's a lot of work. So apparently that night we had the last dinner before I was supposed to go to Košice, and this was the last one. And this girl who was there left to the place where she came from, the other event, and I went there. Like I told you, where my caravan was, it was outside the fence, and I was supposed to go to the outside where the horses stay, and I was supposed to go inside. So inside another fence where my caravan was. So I kind of went and then opened the fence. As soon as I opened the fence, the horse came running, and then I kind of got scared, and I ran inside. It came and just stood right outside the fence, and then it started looking at me. I was like, okay, fine. And then it left. I was like, okay, maybe something happened. The next day at 5 o'clock, I was supposed to leave, and in the night I started having dreams about, horsemanship and how intense the horse was. Like, it would have been like super good for cowboys, because they had like this buddy who just understands them on a very deep level, and I wanted that someday with a horse, like, as a buddy. And the next day I was about to leave around like 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's the bus timing. And when I got up, the horse is like waiting for me right outside the gate, and then he parallelly walks with me on the other side of the fence till the restaurant, where again Margot, the Norwegian guy, was about to drop me. And apparently the horse knew I was leaving, and that was so good. Like, the whole ride back was just about the horse. Like, I was like, wow, maybe someday I will have the opportunity to buy a horse and make a great friend. And it's more like the horse chooses you and you don't choose it's not like you choose the horse actually chooses you. And I hope some Italian stallion might choose me. Then I went back to Zvolin, and then I went to the same cafe bar, and then I finally came back to Košice. I don't know, I felt so new. It's like breaking a pattern, so that's what these kind of travels do. I know it's been a bit of a long podcast, but I hope you enjoyed it, and there'll be more coming. Thank you. Please do subscribe, share, love, comment, and tell me if I can improve.